What if we could build a mental map of the entire global economy? And what if it all started with one super simple question about you? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's dive in.
Okay, let's be real. You want stuff. We all do. Food, a roof over your head, maybe a TV that's just a little bit bigger than your cousin's. But here's the fundamental catch. You can't have it all. And spoiler alert, neither can anyone else.
And it all boils down to one single, incredibly powerful idea: scarcity. This is the absolute core of all economics. There's just not enough to go around for everyone. I mean, if we had infinite pizza and infinite houses, the entire field of economics wouldn't even exist. But since we don't, we're all forced to make choices. And because we have to choose, every single decision we make comes with a hidden price tag. Economists have a name for this: opportunity cost. It's just the value of the next best thing you didn't do. For example, right now, by watching this, your opportunity cost might be that amazing cat video you could be watching instead. Hopefully, we're the better choice.
Okay, so scarcity means we have to choose. But how do we, as a whole society, figure out who gets what? Over thousands of years, we've stumbled upon a pretty clever system for solving this whole thing.
The solution is actually kind of beautiful. It all starts with simple trade. But to make trade really work, we specialize. We figure out what we're relatively good at. You know, even if your neighbor is a better cook and a better gardener than you, if you're comparatively better at gardening, it still makes total sense for you to focus on the garden and trade your vegetables for their cooking. And all of this specialization in trading happens in markets, which is just a word for any place where buyers and sellers can connect. And markets are basically this giant, constant tug of war between two forces: supply and demand. Think about it like a hot new video game. The supply is how many copies the company actually made. The demand is how many people are desperate to buy it. If demand is crazy high and the supply is low, the price goes up. If there are tons of copies and nobody really wants it, the price drops. That sweet spot in the middle is where the price naturally lands. Of course, trading stuff directly is a huge pain. I mean, can you imagine trying to trade a goat for your Wi-Fi connection? So, to make all this easier, we invented money. It's really just a tool that lets us trade our time and skills for things we want without having to haul a bunch of goats around. So, we've seen how you make choices and how markets work on a small scale. But what happens when you zoom out, like way out? Let's look at the big picture and see how we even begin to measure the economic engine of an entire country. When we start talking about a whole country's economy, the numbers just get astronomical. I mean, look at this number. It's so big it barely looks real. So how on earth do you even calculate something that huge? How do we measure this massive machine?
Well, the most popular tool is something called gross domestic product, or GDP. The easiest way to think about it is like a country's annual report card. It's the total value of everything a country makes and sells in a year. Every car, every cup of coffee, every single haircut.
And one of the simplest ways to calculate GDP is just to follow the money and add up all the spending. So you've got C for consumption, that's you and me buying stuff. Then I for investment, that's businesses buying new equipment. G is for government spending on things like roads and schools. And finally, you've got net exports, which is just the value of stuff we sell to other countries minus the stuff we buy from them. So we have this massive economic machine, and we have a dashboard, GDP, to see how it's doing. But this thing doesn't just run on autopilot. What happens when the engine runs too hot and prices start to spike? Or what if it sputters and stalls out? Who's supposed to be flying this thing? Well, it turns out there are two main pilots in the cockpit, and they each have their own set of controls. First, you have the government, and it uses what's called fiscal policy. Think of their controls as taxes and spending. To speed up a slow economy, they can cut taxes or spend more. Then you have the central bank. In the US, it's the Federal Reserve. They use monetary policy, and their main tool is messing with interest rates to make borrowing money either cheaper or more expensive. And one of the biggest challenges both these pilots are constantly fighting is inflation. You know that feeling when it seems like the price of absolutely everything is going up? The classic explanation for that is pretty simple. It's what happens when you have too much money chasing too few goods. But trying to fly the economy is incredibly tricky because it's not always clear what's causing what. For example, here's a statistic that is 100% true. When ice cream sales go up, the number of people who drown also goes up. The two are positively correlated.
Which brings us to a really important question you have to ask anytime you look at data. Is there a direct link here? Is there some secret ingredient in ice cream that makes people forget how to swim?
Obviously not. And this is probably one of the most important rules in all of economics and data analysis. Correlation does not equal causation. There's almost always a hidden third factor, what they call a confounding variable. And in this case, it's hot weather. When it's hot, more people buy ice cream and more people go swimming. It's a great reminder to always dig a little deeper.
All right, time for one last zoom out. We've gone from your choices to your country's economy, and now we're going global. Because in our modern world, no country's economy is an island. We're all tangled up in one massive, complex web.
That same idea of comparative advantage we talked about before, well, it works for entire countries too. Germany is fantastic at building cars. Vietnam is fantastic at making clothes. So instead of both of them trying to do everything, it makes way more sense for them to specialize in trade. In theory, everybody wins. We all get more options and better prices. That's the whole promise of globalization.
But, and this is a huge but, this incredibly efficient global system can also be shockingly fragile. We all got a masterclass in this back in 2021 when a single container ship got wedged sideways in the Suez Canal. It literally caused a global traffic jam, blocking billions of dollars in trade every single day. It was the perfect reminder of just how interconnected and how vulnerable we've all become.
So when you strip it all away, it doesn't matter if we're talking about your personal budget or a giant ship stuck in a canal. Every economic story is really just about humanity trying to answer the same three basic questions. What should we make? How should we make it? And who gets all the stuff we've made? Every economic system in history is just a different attempt to answer those questions. And since no one has the perfect answer, it makes the whole thing endlessly fascinating. So I'll leave you with this. Which of those three questions do you think is the most important one for us to get right?